In every aspect of life, setting up goals is a telltale sign as to whether or not someone will succeed. And from an accounting perspective, I've come to find 5 financial goals that usually foreshadow whether or not someone is or isn't on track for financial success. Let me get straight to it. The first goal is super overlooked, and that's because it doesn't really seem like much. But I've noticed it's one of the biggest differences when determining when someone is and isn't responsible with their money. And goal number 1, which is literally something you can do right now, is setting up a fun money account. A fun money account is a type of checking account. And instead of not trying to spend the money that you have, you're basically giving yourself the green light to spend all the money in that account on anything you want. Now you're probably thinking,
there's a catch.
But there isn't. Have all the fun you want with this account, hence why it's called a fun money account. Now the trick is, with every paycheck, you're only putting a certain amount in the fun money account. Whether you use it is completely up to you. You may not be realizing it, but this is sort of creating a budget in your bank, letting you know how much money you can and can't spend on the things you want. The biggest difference between an average person and a money conscious person is that the average person keeps all of their money in a checking account and uses that account to pay for all of their wants and all of their needs. Meanwhile, a money conscious person like you uses your checking account for the things you need, your fun money account for the things you want, and your savings account for your emergencies. Which brings me to my next goal. Goal number 2 is having 3 to 6 months of your living expenses in your emergency savings fund. There's a difference between savings and emergency savings. Savings accounts are used when saving for a house, a car, a Mami Nami body pillow. I don't know, I'm just throwing stuff out there. Now, an emergency savings is money you set aside in the case of emergencies. This can be when you lose a job, or you wreck a car, or any unexpected situation in life where you need a large sum of cash. The great thing is that you don't need to keep putting money in your emergency savings forever. Once you have 3 to 6 months of your living expenses, you can start to prioritize putting your money in different accounts. Number 3, having a good credit score. Now, I've mentioned this fact in another video, and that's because it still shocks me, but the difference between having good or bad credit when buying a house can cost you an additional $100,000. What the fuck? Having a good credit score helps you get ahead in life, and it's one of the best decisions that I've made along my personal finance journey. Now, getting and maintaining a good credit score is actually pretty straightforward, and we're actually given 5 rules to follow on how to improve our credit score. I get much more detailed with this in other videos, but here's the gist. Start with a credit card and only use it to buy things you have the money to pay off right then and there. Make sure you're not using more than 30% of your credit limit, and make sure you're paying off your balance as soon as you can. That's pretty much it. The longer your account is, the better, and you get some bonus points if you add more lines of credit over the years. However, before you get a credit card, there is one huge thing you need to do to improve your credit score, which brings me to my next goal. Goal number 4. Have no debt. This is probably the most straightforward goal, but it can be very difficult, especially if you're starting off in a place where you already have debt. If you don't have debt right now, then congratulations, you're golden. You need to make sure you stay this way. If you do have debt, don't worry, this is not inherently bad, but you do need to make sure you're prioritizing paying this off first once you have a small emergency savings. Because if you get in an accident and you don't have some emergency savings, then you'll get in more debt, which leads to more interest, and you're just digging a deeper hole for yourself. Now, taking some sort of loan, whether it's for a car, a house, or a school, this will actually help increase your credit score over time, helping with goal number 3. So I want to make it very clear, debt is not a bad thing. However, not paying off that debt is when it becomes very, very hurtful for you. So if you're young and you have debt that you're not paying off, you need to be aware of something called compound interest, which can be a double-edged sword. Remember when I said more debt means more interest? Well, the more you let your debt go unpaid, the bigger it will grow. Even if you buy nothing and never touch credit again, your debt will continue to grow and grow until it's completely paid off. So I'm actually begging you, do not let debt accumulate. This will be the worst mistake you make in your life, especially when you're young, because this is when compound interest can really take advantage of you. Now, I did mention that compound interest was a double-edged sword, meaning it can be very harmful for you if you let it take advantage of the debt you have unpaid. However, you can use it for your advantage, especially for your passive investments, which leads me to goal number 5. Make sure you have a retirement account, especially a tax-advantaged retirement account like a Roth IRA. So when you have millions of dollars down the line and you want to take it out, you pay $0 in taxes. Yes. Now, I know it seems early, but I promise you it's not. Another fact that I've mentioned before, but only because it's so crazy, is that starting this account at 18 versus at 30 will cost you an average of $1.4 million. So every year that you let slip by is basically $100K down the drain. Now, you might not know this, but anytime you really need money, let's say for an emergency, you can withdraw anything that you've already put into a Roth IRA. So although I wouldn't call it an emergency fund, it can be a real lifesaver down the line if you need an inflow of cash and your emergency savings wasn't enough to cover it. Keep in mind, the government knows this kind of an account is basically a cheat code, so they limit the amount of money that you can actually put in something like a Roth IRA. So make sure you're maxing this out as much as you can. Just make a habit of putting the same amount in your Roth IRA every month. And if you ever really need the money, because life happens sometimes, you can always take out what you've contributed, so consider it a backup to your emergency savings. But if you have 3 to 6 months in your emergency savings, you really won't run into any issues. Now, I know I said 5, but I have one more final bonus tip that kind of sums up everything in a way. Goal number 5.5. Across all your accounts, have 1 year's salary saved. So add up all the money in your checkings, your fund money, your emergency savings, your investments. All of that combined should be at least 1 year's salary. Keep in mind, this is considering that you have no debt. So make sure you're prioritizing paying that off and then see if you have a cumulative amount of 1 year's salary. All right, so let me sum up everything. These are the 5.5 goals to achieve in your 20s. Number 1, have a fund money account. Number 2, have 3 to 6 months in emergency savings. Number 3, have a good credit score. Number 4, have no debt. Number 5, have a retirement account. And number 5.5, across all accounts, have 1 year's salary. Now, if you have none of these goals done, create a fund money account. Now you have at least one of these goals finished. If you have any questions about your personal situation regarding these goals or anything to finance, leave that below in the comments and I'll do my very best to help you out. I hope you learned something today. If you're interested in learning more, maybe about credit cards and how to build your credit score, I've got some good videos for you. That is going to be it from me. I have another book to get back to, so have a fantastic week and stay smart.